L.A. Capone was one of Chicago's hottest up-and-coming talents before he was tragically murdered in 2013. Let's get into his come-up and career. L.A. Capone was born and raised in the south side of Chicago. His parents split when he was young, and he mostly lived with his mom and 4 sisters in Chicago. Even as a kid, his family knew he was going to be special. He had a natural charm and sense of humor that made everyone like him. He lived in Chicago until he was in middle school, and then briefly moved to Atlanta to live with his pops. His mom was worried about the violence in the south side and didn't want to get LA sucked into the streets. In Atlanta, he went to school and met Lil Yachty. He and Yachty were cool with each other, and Yachty's maintained a relationship with LA's older brother. He was also friends with the former female rap group OMG Girls, which included Reginae Carter, Lil Wayne's daughter, and Zonique J. Lee Pullins, T.I.'s stepdaughter. So even in his early days, L.A. Capone was cool with future stars. L.A. was an honor student in school and also played on the football team. But after his pops passed away, he moved back to Chicago and started getting into all the things his mom warned him about. That's when he started hanging around other dudes from the neighborhood and became affiliated with the 600 set of the Black Disciples. Around this time, he started carrying guns and was getting into fights almost every day. But this was also when he started taking rap seriously. He always had an interest in music and had been freestyling since he was a kid. But being around other dudes in the neighborhood who were rapping, like Lil Durk and Rondo No. 9, he started putting more effort into music. He first appeared in videos of rappers from 600 and eventually began dropping music on his own. He started making music under the name L.A. Capone when he was 14. His rap name was a play on his initials, L.A. for Leonard Anderson, his real name. The Capone was a reference to the famous Chicago gangster, Al Capone. Early on, everyone knew that L.A. was going to blow up because of how popular and well-liked he was in the hood. L.A.'s first song was a feature on the track Grimy with Rondo No. 9 and King Bruce, produced by Lex Luger. Rondo was already building a buzz in the city with his hard flow and reputation in the streets. But as soon as L.A. hopped on the track with him, it was clear he also had the talent to make it far in the rap game. Together, it seemed like he and Rondo were on track to follow the same footsteps as Chief Keef and Lil Durk, who were quickly becoming the 2 biggest stars from Chicago. Part of their appeal was that they was living the life they talked about in their music. But that lifestyle also came with its consequences, and in September 2012, L.A. Capone got shot for the first time. Fellow rapper Tay 600 was with him when it happened. According to Tay, they was hanging out on the block. Originally, they had guns on them, but it was so hot that day that they decided to leave him behind and walk from 600 to Front Street to link up with some of their homies. As they was walking, they saw one of their ops, but wasn't really paying attention. The dude went into a nearby corner store and shot at someone inside first. They heard the shot, but ain't know where it came from. The shooter then came out of the store and spotted them, so he upped his pole and started letting off shots. They all started to run, but LA got hit. They all tried to run in opposite directions to get away, but LA ended up running down the street to try to duck behind a car. He got shot in the leg, the exact place he would get hit a year later, which took his life. But getting shot ain't seemed to faze LA. By that point, they had been exposed to so much growing up in Chicago that they was becoming immune to violence. So, LA made a quick recovery and got right back to what he was doing. He dropped his first solo track, Work, in 2012. The track did some good numbers for a debut song and showed how much potential he had as a rapper. But the track that really took off was the song Murder, which was released in early 2013. He followed up with the track So Loud, which also did major numbers and showed his versatility. LA was proving he was the entire package with cold bars, catchy melodies, and the swag of a superstar. He graduated high school in 2013. Even though he was an honor student with good grades, he didn't go to college, but instead put all his focus into his rap career. In July 2013, he appeared on several tracks on Rondo No. 9's mixtape, Steve Drive, including Shooters, 600, Grindin', and Play for Keeps. Many of these songs eventually became drill classics. LA and Rondo went on to release a video for Play for Keeps later that month, which racked up millions of views and started to gain him exposure outside of Chicago. LA was on his way to becoming a major name and was getting looks from superstars like T.I., French Montana, and Waka Flocka. But he didn't even have an official project yet. So, following the success of Play for Keeps, he decided to lock in and start working on his debut mixtape. He booked time at the studio so he could work on the project. But before he had a chance to release the project, LA was tragically killed after leaving the studio. Around 6:30 p.m. on September 26, 2013, LA left the studio on the 7,000 block of South Stony Island Avenue. He walked down the alley to get into a car and was confronted by rival gang members who ended up firing several shots, hitting him in the thigh and lower back. LA's homie JB Bin Laden was with him at the studio right before he was killed, but he decided to walk home in a different direction. As he was walking away, he spotted an op trying to creep up on LA and try to warn him, but it was already too late. LA tried to run away, but ended up collapsing and had to be rushed to the hospital. He was still alive when he was brought to the hospital and had to undergo emergency surgery. Unfortunately, he lost too much blood and ended up dying later that night. L.A. Capone's death was a major loss for 600. Everybody thought he would be the next superstar to blow up from Chicago and put the whole hood on the map. But after he was killed, the whole 600 set started to fall apart. Only a few months after L.A. was killed, Rondo and another member of 600 named C-Day got arrested for the murder of a cab driver named Javon Boyd. They'd eventually be found guilty of that murder and sentenced to 38 and 39 years in prison. During the trial, rumors started going around that Tay 600 snitched because he was with him that night. Years later, official paperwork was released that claimed he never actually cooperated with authorities. But by that point, his reputation was damaged, as well as his relationships with other members of 600. So, LA's death was the beginning of the end for 600. About a year after he was killed, 3 men were arrested in connection with his murder. Police identified Saki Hardy Johnson and Michael Mays as the killers. A third suspect, named Miko Buchanan, was also arrested for driving a tail car, meant to protect the other car with the killer inside it. Johnson was sentenced to 60 years in prison, Mays was sentenced to 24 years, and Buchanan was sentenced to 45 years. LA's killers had ties to 051 Money Gang, a set of the Mickey Cobras, who were known to be for 600. Saki Hardy Johnson, aka Lil Mick, was allegedly the one who shot LA, and the other 2 were accomplices. Police tied him to the murder after arresting Michael Mays, aka Rockhead, for a gun charge. He thought he could beat the case by telling them what he knew about his involvement in the LA Capone murder, but he ended up getting way more time than he would have if he just took the original charge. Rockhead implicated Lil Mick as a shooter and Miko as an accomplice. By the end of the investigation, they all ended up snitching on each other and confessed their involvement to the police to avoid getting life in prison. 051 Money Gang and 600 had been beefing for several years. LA's murder was rumored to be retaliation for the murder of a 14-year-old member of 051 Money Gang named Fats or Fathead. Fats was killed on June 22, 2012 while walking with his cousin to a corner store. A van drove past him while they was walking, then minutes later, a hooded gunman snuck up behind them and killed Fats. It's said that 600 was responsible for the death of Fats. It's also been said that LA may have been in the van at the time of the murder. But even if he wasn't involved, LA was a well-known member of 600 and would have been a major target for ops from rival gangs. To Separate Myself, the mixtape that LA was working on at the time of his death, was eventually released in 2014. It was a compilation of old and unreleased tracks and featured appearances from Rondo, S. Dot, Lil Chief Dinero, and Lil Durk. The final track on the album, Brothers, was the last verse he recorded right before he was killed. LA Capone's death was not only a major loss to 600, but the entire Chicago drill scene.